Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 59 of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by ImpactFuel.org. I am your host, Josh Weesey, and I'm here to guide you through the wild world of motorsports sponsorship. Tell me that today I have two people on the show. Our featured guests today are Kaden and Sarah Danbury. So, for people who don't know, Kaden is 9 years old, and Sarah, his mother, helps him manage his entire racing program. So we're going to talk to them about youth racing sponsorship. Now, before I get into the interview, I have a few things to go over with you. One, I would love it if you went onto iTunes and left a rating and review. That's very important to me and to the show. At this point, I actually want to take a quick minute to read a review from one of our previous guests on the show, which is Tucker Merritt. So he left a review back in July of 2017. He said, I have never found a podcast that describes exactly what I'm all about. Great info for all stages of riders. Everything is relatable or new info you need to know in order to progress in our industry. So I really appreciate Tucker taking the time to leave that review. If you do the same, at some point I will actually read your review on this show. Now, I would love it also if you subscribe. Wherever you get your podcasts at, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. Next up, we actually have the next edition of our youth racing program, and that is with Carla and Casey Sims. So similar story. Casey's a couple years older, but Casey and Kaden actually live down the road from each other. So they raced a lot together, and there's just multiple perspectives though that they're going to share around the whole sponsorship program. So make sure you tune in to that episode, which we'll be releasing next week. Beyond that, we have Christine GZ of Dynamic Racing, and actually we recorded over Skype while she was in Barcelona, Spain, where she lives, and I was in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So really cool to see that. It was a 6-hour time difference, and she makes it all the way over here for desert racing in the United States. So really cool to get that perspective from her as well. If you want to get some insider access for our upcoming guests, go ahead and check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook. If you have any questions, email me directly, podcast@impactfuel.org. Now, this episode is brought to you by four awesome companies. SolderWeld, they produce game-changing metal bonding technology products. TopThePodium.com, they're experts in motorsport sponsorship. Bold Racing and Suspension, they're a family race team and custom suspension experts. Armor Kote, they make products that make your cleanup easier. And I also want to give a quick shout-out to some of our other partners, including MBRP, HMK, Studboy Traction, and One Stop Performance. The structure of this is set up like a race. We'll begin with the qualifier, which is the basic introduction. In Heat 1, we'll dive into Sarah and Kaden's background. In Heat 2, we'll discuss sponsorship tactics and strategies. In the main event, we'll discuss mindset, and then we'll end at the finish line. We'll get some closing comments and figure out how to get a hold of the folks from Danbury Racing. Without further ado, let's get it. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast. I am pumped because this is the first time where we've actually brought somebody on the show that is younger than 16. So this is actually part of what I'm calling a youth sponsorship series. So you're going to see a couple of younger racers. Definitely stay tuned for that. But let's talk about our guest today. So we have both Kaden and Sarah Danbury, and they are on here to talk about kind of their world of youth racing and motorsport sponsorship. So what I want to do next is have both Sarah and Kaden kick us off with an intro. So Sarah, let's start with you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Danbury, Kaden and Remy's mom. We live in Vista, California.
Hi everyone, I'm Kaden Danbury. I'm 9 years old, and I'm in 4th grade, and I go to Vista Christian School. I race Polaris Razor 170s, and I've been racing a little over 4 years now.
Wow, that's awesome. So that means you started racing when you were about 5 years old, right?
Yep.
Wow, that's incredible. We've talked about this a lot on the show. Usually it's with somebody who's 20 or 30, and we're like, oh, tell us when you got started. I got started when I was 5 years old. Like, oh, that's cool. Now we're actually, talking to somebody that's in that stage of their career. So, Kaden, first off, buddy, I just want to thank you for coming on here. I think it takes a lot of courage, one, to just do the racing that you do and put yourself out there, but two, coming on a show when you're younger in 4th grade, that's awesome. So, thank you for having the courage to do this.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. Well, I want to dive a lot deeper into your background because honestly, it's intriguing to me. I want to know about your two's relationship and how you guys run this whole sponsorship deal, how you run this whole racing deal. So let's start with Sarah, though. I mean, I want to know how you got into the motorsports world.
Yeah, sure. I grew up kind of in the off-road industry, I guess you could say. We went from camping and riding in the desert into Mexico, San Felipe, and I started racing Sea-Doos, dirt bikes, off-road trucks, you kind of name it, in my teenage years with my family. And we did that for as long as my injuries would let me. I got in a lot of them. So, yeah, we did that for a while, met my husband snowboarding, and we had kids, and I stopped racing prior to kids about 2 years, and decided to get back into it after Kaden was born. And I think it was a MDR race in 2008. I raced a Class 10, first race back in a couple of years, and after you have a kid, your whole mentality, the whole no fear, I can do anything mentality kind of goes out the door, and probably the longest race of my life, and got back and I said, I think I'm done for a while.
Yeah.
So, but now, we go to the desert every winter, race pending, and we just spend our time out there. I get to watch the kids on their dirt bikes, on their razors, and just, I enjoy that. I still have my off-road truck. I still get to go do all that kind of fun stuff, but it's more just a family environment now. So, I don't know. It's my happy place.
Oh, perfect. Well,
yeah.
what made you decide, or I guess how did the family decide to, get the kids into the racing world?
To be honest with you, it was probably when he was 6 years old. We were going through some kind of a rough patch with Kaden. He was struggling through school, and we had found out at that time that he was dyslexic. Mm-hmm. And we knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
And it was just trying to figure out the learning aspect of it, and then trying to figure out the teaching aspect of how to handle him and how he learned. He thinks differently, which is totally normal. And our friends, the Quinteros, they got Seth involved in 170 racing, so we were able to go watch Seth Quintero start to race. And he fell in love, and I loved the fact that Seth could go out there and rip around a track, and he was caged and safe, and it was perfect, perfect for me.
Yeah, definitely.
So we decided to go get him a 170 and asked Magnum Off-Road to build him a cage, and it was history from there.
Oh, that's cool. And we're gonna get into a lot more of these details later, so I won't get into all of it now. But I'm gonna want to know about Magnum Off-Road, and I'm gonna definitely want to know about what you felt like when Kaden first got out there, cage or no cage, just that feeling. But before we get into all that fun stuff later in the episode, Kaden, I want to circle back to you, buddy, and I want to hear your story, man. What have you gone through over the past 3 or 4 years, and what's been some of your accomplishments?
Well, I've been desert riding my entire life. My first vehicle was a PW50, and I rode that. And my first race, as my mom said, we watched Seth Quintero, and I loved it. And we all loved racing, our entire family. And my parents got me in the car, like she said, and started racing at 6 years old in 2014. And Glen Helen was my first race. I was scared to go up Talladega because it was a steep hill. Went up it, took a couple down, and then my uncle and my dad came right over, helped me, and I got back on the track and finished. And my second race ever was the UTV World Championship. And so far, I've won 4 championships. I've raced 5 Best in the Desert races total, 3 UTV World Championships, and 2 Winter Nationals. And in 2016, I raced Lucas Oil, and didn't seem to really enjoy it. So now I'm starting to race the World Series and the DITD and Dirt Series.
Oh, perfect. And for people listening right now, Kaden is downplaying how many times he wins. So I keep track of this because for people who don't know, I have another little business that I run. It's called Impact Fuel, and it's basically converts podium donations. So when people win on podiums, we donate money to charity. And Kaden, it's like every time he races, I just know that it's coming, right?
Oh, we appreciate that, and we appreciate that what you do because it's so important. I tell Kaden with the Impact Fuel and with like Warfighter Made, it means more to us than you all know. Like we really appreciate everything that everyone does, and it's we try and donate as much as we can.
Well, I think the charities appreciate Danbury Racing because I'm pretty sure you're like the primary supporter, so that's good. You actually, Casey Sims, like when he goes out there to races, like I know there's a mileage donation or a podium donation coming. It's just like every time, but that's cool.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome stuff. It's been cool seeing you race and seeing both of you work together. But one of the things that also been cool is you mentioned Seth Quintero, right? And
yes.
He's been doing phenomenal. And I remember the first time I really like started following Seth was in my interview with Joey D of UTV Underground. That was on episode 24, and so it's been 30 some odd episodes ago. And at that point, I asked Joey D. I said, who is like the number one person that we need to be following, like whether it be in social media or whatever? Who is that person that is just killing it right now? And he said Seth Quintero.
Yep, he's doing awesome. He's doing amazing.
Yeah.
He's a really good racer.
Definitely. Good person to watch then.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
Perfect. Well, hey, I think that's a good little intro. I think it gives them an idea of what the two of you have done recently. And, next thing I want to do, though, is talk really about how you got there and how you were able to accomplish some of those things, from a sponsorship standpoint. But before we get into that information, I want to take a quick minute to thank the sponsors for this podcast. I don't know about you, but I absolutely can't stand cleaning the mud, filth, grime, goo, garbage off my machines after I go for a ride. It's just frustrating. It takes a lot of time. That's why I'm going to talk to you about Armor Kote next. Armor Kote is designed to help prevent mud, clay, ice, and other grime from sticking to your machine. It makes the cleanup quick and easy. It makes the machine actually look fantastic, and beyond that, it smells phenomenal. I don't know how to describe it, like bubble gum or something like that. It smells great. If you want to know more about Armor Kote, visit armorkoteproducts.com, and you will see their entire product line, all the offerings. Armor Kote is also working on some new stuff. They're soon going to release a solution made for coating the helmet and visor, and also one for wheels to help prevent mud buildup for high temp areas. So make your move now. Go to armorkoteproducts.com. Make a decision that's going to allow you to shorten the amount of time that you spend cleaning so that you can increase the amount of time that you spend riding and racing. I hear it constantly from racers that a good suspension setup is absolutely critical for performance, and that's why I'm going to talk to you next about Bold Racing and suspension. Now, it's really critical to understand your suspension, and there's so many intricacies with the valving and the shims and all this crazy equipment that you need to actually, rebuild and properly set up your suspension, that it's really important if you're ready for that next level of performance to partner with an awesome suspension company. Now, Bold Racing is that company. They're not only specialists with their suspension setups, but they also partner with companies that produce amazing custom components. And on top of that, they're a family race team. They actually race themselves, so they really understand the type of beating that your vehicle and your shocks can take. So what I want you to do is give them a call and just chat with them. Talk to them about suspension. Their number is 702-506-5354. If you're not ready for a phone call, go ahead and shoot them an email, bold.racing@yahoo.com. Have you ever been out on the trail or at the track or in the middle of the desert and something breaks? Well, of course you have. We've all been there. But a lot of people at that point, they reach into their trusty toolbox for the duct tape or the zip ties or wrenches to fix their machine. However, there's a feeling that you get when you realize you need more than just duct tape to fix that rock chip in your radiator. That's a horrible, horrible feeling to have. And that's why I'm going to tell you next about SolderWeld's metal bonding products, specifically alloy sol. So this product gives you a longer term fix than JB Weld, which is just going to get you back to the trailer or back to the pits. With basically the assistance of MAP gas or propane torch, you can quickly and easily repair an oil cooler, radiator, AC line, or any crack or hole in aluminum. And better yet, alloy sol flux is the only flux in industry that cleans and decontaminates the dirty and greasy surface for you. So you don't even have to worry about that part. The alloy sol rods are actually capable of a 30,000 psi fix, and they're stronger than even the parent metal, and they're built to last the lifetime of the part. So don't let a simple radiator leak leave you out of the race or broken down in the trail. Bring along some alloy sol aluminum alloy repair rod and flux from SolderWeld. I am constantly asking the guests of this podcast how they attract and retain sponsors. And on almost every single occasion, somebody gives an example of a resume. A rider or a racer resume is extremely important to your overall sponsorship pitch and proposal. And it's tough to do. I mean, it's not really the easiest thing. Anybody can go through and put together a resume, so don't get me wrong there, but it's really difficult to get something that's like unique and different and stands out, and that also is something that can be put across multiple platforms. Well, that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about next, is how topthepodium.com can actually help you build a race or rider resume that can be used on multiple platforms. I'm talking like website, PDF, something you can print off that's interactive, that looks fantastic. It looks absolutely professional. Well, that's because it's made by a professional. This is the type of thing that's going to set you apart from the crowd, and that's going to position you for a strong sponsorship proposal. So what I want you to do next is go to topthepodium.com, and if you have a question, there's a little chat icon that pops up on the side of the screen when you go to topthepodium.com, and you can go ahead and type your question right there. Jeff Vanestal, he is the owner of Top the Podium. He's going to be able to respond to you directly. So check it out. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are now in Heat 2. That's the meat. That's the nitty-gritty details around sponsorship. That's honestly why people come on this show, is to hear this advice. In this section, we're really going to talk about, kind of youth racing sponsorship and how does that work. So I want to start off with you, Kaden, and just tell me who some of your current sponsors are.
Lots of great people and sponsors. Polaris Razor, Magnum Off-Road, Walker Evans, Super ATV, G-Force Belt, Big Gun Exhaust, Shreddy, Peralt Motorsports, Benchmark Performance, CBC Motorsports, Crow Enterprises, NTY Motorsports, K1 Race Gear, TRP Seats, Shelby Racing Academy, Smooth Clutches, Magic, Rugged Radios, UTV Underground, and Danbury Racing, and my sister for being at every race.
Oh, hey, there you go.
We gotta thank her. She puts up with a lot.
Yeah.
That's the ticket right there. I ran a little post on Facebook a little while back, and I asked people to tag all their sponsors, and somebody was like, "And my wife," and I was like, "Nailed it." That's it right there.
Absolutely. You gotta thank those ones because they sit there and they put up with all of our craziness.
Definitely. Well, I gotta call out one specifically, Polaris Razor. That's gotta be that means something, right? I think there's probably some extra special circumstances around that. Would you, either one of you, want to tell me about those special circumstances?
Well, with that, I have to give credit to Kaden, majority. One, his records have shown to be good enough to catch one of the biggest and greatest companies in the off-road industry. So, he's the one that pulled that one. And then on the other end of it, he's also the one that just asked. And he built a relationship with some of the people that he's gotten to know. And you know, we were as parents right behind him, backing him up and talking with everybody. But, you know, he was the one that talked to them first and made that relationship and made it easy for us to go about it.
No, that's phenomenal. How many Polaris Razor 170 riders are sponsored right now by Polaris?
Well, as far as we know right now, and there could be more out there, we don't know. It's kind of just a brand new thing. So right now we know of Kaden.
Yeah,
so.
That's awesome. That's what I was trying to get at. I was like, I want to get that out. So that's really cool.
That's what we know. So we're so lucky.
Yeah. Oh, it's phenomenal. Let's say there's 2 or 5 or 10 or 20. Like, still, that's amazing. You know, we talk about Polaris on this show a lot. They are very active in the motorsports world, and you know, they've got some really good programs. So I'm excited to see that. You know, for the first one or second, again, like I said, 5, whatever it is. That's a really good accomplishment. So, Kaden, buddy, especially for you, if you're the one that set that up, that's great. You should be proud of yourself.
Thank you very much.
Another one, Shelby Racing Academy.
Shelby Anderson.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Shelby Anderson. So we interviewed her. Oh, wow. I've been doing enough of these episodes now. I can't remember all the numbers. 20. I think it was episode 20. She was on here, and she talked about you, I think, too, in that Kaden. But tell me about that program.
Well, right now she's helping me train, and she's a really good trainer. And yeah, I just wanted to thank her because she helps me be able to drive it this good and get all these great sponsors. Definitely.
And I know she's very excited about working with you and a lot of the other younger racers. It seems like a really passion point for her.
Oh, she's amazing. She's, you know, we approached her. We heard she was working with some trophy carts, and Kaden, I don't know if it was me or him, but we talked to her, and she's like, I would love to do a razor. It would be so awesome. And just ended up where you know, I talked to her almost every day, you know, just about nothing. And she adores Kaden, and she knows how to work with him. There's a lot of trainers out there that, you know, there are different temperaments. People handle kids differently, and kids handle people the adults differently that train them. And Shelby and Kaden, they mesh, and she knows how to get through to him, where I just run up to him and I'll, Shelby, what the heck is he doing? You know, and she's like, calm down. Kaden, come here. You know, and I don't know, she's amazing. She's amazing in what she does, and I would recommend her to anyone out there.
Very cool, very cool. If people want to know more about Shelby, you know, go back to episode 20 and you can hear her story, and she talks about, you know, her advice on sponsorship as well. So, Sarah, for you, I just want to know a little bit more, you know, maybe this is kind of a background type question, but, I mean, how did you know, or how did you first realize that Kaden could be a racer?
Well, you know, I didn't, but I knew that you put anything in front of him and he'll get on it and he'll charge it, and he was one of those crazy kids that couldn't be off anything, and he was always constantly going. And then when the whole dyslexia thing happened and we figured all that out, you know, you put him in a car, and, you know, he was at it sounds as crazy as it sounds, he was at his low. The confidence, the self-esteem, we were like, what the heck do we do? We put him in this razor, we put him out there, and all of a sudden he's like, did you see how fast I was going? Did you see the jump I hit? And I got 3rd place, and it was just like a 360 in him. And then it became, okay, well, this is how we can make the kid happy. Now let's see how we can get him to learn and how we can get him to focus better. And so we used it to our advantage in education-wise, but in his advantage for his, you know, overall outlook on life. So it was kind of one of those things that the teachers were even saying, keep him racing, something's happening right now. And
very cool.
Kind of how it happened for us. You know, it was, you know, you can tell a kid over and over something, and then all of a sudden, one thing clicks for him, and it worked.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. That's very cool. That's a good story. And I know people are listening right now. Like, everybody has something that they struggle with, and they probably also have something that they're really good at. So what I would encourage them to do is, if they're really good at something, do more of that.
Yeah.
And,
it's insane because, like, you can't tell. I mean, on a normal day, you're like, Kaden, are you here? Come over here. And you put him in front of a car, and we were just at Magnum Off-Road literally an hour ago, and we're trying to figure out something on his car, and he's like, oh, there it is. And, I mean, it's what triggers in his mind and what keeps him focused.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a crazy thing. It really is. It's hard to explain because, especially with new teachers, that every year I have to sit down with them and we talk about some of the things that he needs to that they need to watch for and that kind of thing, and they don't understand all this racing sometimes, and then we tell him you don't get it. If he doesn't, you're going to see a huge change because he's going to lose focus, and he knows that if he doesn't, if he can't get good grades and he doesn't do all this, he's not racing. So.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. Yeah. I mean, there's something to it where if you're in, actually, I think there's a book I'm reading about it right now. It's called Flow. Like, when you're in a state of flow and everything else just kind of starts falling into place. So,
yeah,
that's
I
cool.
Agree.
Before I move on to the next question, I actually want to circle back because I definitely said that I wanted to touch base on Magnum Off-Road, and you just mentioned them again there to remind me. So was that one of the first sponsors? It sounded like they may have made the cage for you.
Yeah, they were one of my first sponsors, and I was one of their first 170 builds, and they helped me. They built me an awesome car. We raced it. And ever since, they've built me awesome cars.
Every year they build him a new car. I'm like,
really?
No. Yeah, they actually they built Seth Quintero a car at the beginning, and they we ended up going over there, and they take him in as his own child, and it's amazing. They treat him ridiculous. I don't know if you've seen their stuff, but they do amazing work, and but every year they want to outdo themselves, and they build him some crazy car.
No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So that was a good connection. I mean, how did you make that connection? How did you even know to reach out?
Through friends, through the Quinteros, we ended up going over there, and that's how we ended up meeting them. They were our very first off-road contact. So it was kind of just like, it's either going to be a desert play car, it'll be a race car. Let's just see where this leads us to. And here we are today. We were just over there asking for help, and they drop everything for him. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I just want to pull out a point there around how you use friends to make a connection. That's honestly one of the reasons why this show exists. It does build a network, and there's I guess there's a quote out there. It says your net worth is your network, or your network is your net worth, however you want to say it. And honestly, I've used that in the show where I've made connections with people, and from that point I was able to gain sponsorships, and when I have sponsorships I can continue to produce this show. So
yep.
It's amazing how some of that stuff happens, but it's all about networking.
I agree. That's how we've gained, we've learned and met so many amazing people, and through other people,
Definitely.
It's a small world. You don't realize it because it does look big, but it really isn't. And you meet one person, you're probably going to meet the next.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, I've definitely heard this before. I think people feel bad about that. Like, they feel, well, I don't want to use my friends, I don't want to, like, I need to earn it myself. But
it's true. I agree with that. It's hard, but I think that you don't have to, like, name drop, but I think, being, just being, I don't know, if you're nice and you're a good person out there and you have a good name for yourself, somebody, then you're giving yourself your worth as well.
Yeah, so, one of the ways that I've tried to reframe that in my own mind is thinking about how much work it is to maintain your network. I mean, I know I spend a ton of time messaging people, past interviewees and, on Facebook and Instagram and trying to maintain relationships. And one, I enjoy it a ton, and I feel like people give me advice constantly, and I love that. But two, I mean, I know now if I have a problem in the future, I have certain people to go to. So I do kind of look at it as saying, well, it actually is kind of work to build a network and maintain a network. So maybe you are earning it if you leverage it. Maybe that is part of the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a small industry, so you will probably eventually meet them, but I just, I don't know. For me, if you maintain a good just a good outlook, and you're a good family to be around, and you stick to what you're doing, and we at the races, we talk to everybody, but we put our head down too. We're not in the middle of all the craziness, and it's worth something.
Definitely. Well, Kaden, I got a question for you. I mean, I think everybody struggles with what to actually do for their sponsors. So, from your perspective, Kaden, how do you take care of your sponsors?
Well, I represent them in a professional way because I want to become a professional whenever I grow up like the other big guys. And I believe in their products, and I believe in the stuff that they make, and telling people about them so other people can use their product.
Definitely. Do people, Kaden, do they reach out to you and ask questions about the products?
Yes, they do.
Okay. I always think that that's an important part that I guess probably I didn't really realize. If you'd asked me this question a couple years back, I don't know if I would have made that connection, but there's a lot of that happens where you have a product and people are like, oh, tell me about it. And, yeah, it's this, and this. Where can I buy it at? Where do you recommend I go to?
Yep.
And it's incredible how that stuff happens. For people, they probably know this just based on social media, but MBRP is one of the sponsors for some builds that I'm doing, some project builds. And people reach out to me. They're like, hey, what dealer would you recommend I go to? Like, what's the best can for my snowmobiler? And I love that stuff. I'd be like, oh,
yeah,
go check this out.
Especially in the 170 world, it's youth, and so you have all these new parents that are wanting to get their kid involved, and so you have someone more seasoned like Kaden. They'll come up to us and say, who are you using for this, and who are you using for that? Well, let me tell you, Kaden has been able to, Dustin, my husband, has been able to all sit there and be like, we use this product, and this product. And it's our easiest way of getting through to people, and it's amazing. We're lucky to have that source, whereas the bigger cars don't necessarily, it's more accessible to them.
Definitely. And it's, at races and things like that, or even trade shows, it comes out very frequently. I'm thinking of, Vegas to Reno. We met at Vegas to Reno, right? Remember that? That was fun.
Absolutely.
That's so much fun.
And, at Vegas to Reno, I was there with Jimmy Moore of Bold Racing, and they've been sponsoring this show for a long time. And
that's cool, guys.
Yeah, they are so much fun. It's just, I can't even describe how much fun they are. But they're at that show, and everybody, all day, everybody they see is coming up like, oh, tell me about your shocks. Hey, what's going on with these shocks? It's the entire time is an opportunity to showcase their product. And, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Again, I'll go back to another MBRP example. I went to the Novi, Michigan snowmobile show this year, and it's a pretty big show. And I just had an MBRP hat on, and I think I had an exhaust in my arm, and people are rushing me, tackling me and saying, where did you get this at? Tell me. I don't know. It's just incredible how much power this whole sponsorship thing has on the market.
I love it. I think it's so awesome. I love hearing from some of Kaden's sponsors and them saying, I just had 2 people call and say, we want what Kaden Danbury has. And I'm like, yes, thank you.
Right.
That's so awesome.
Right.
So it's really cool.
Well, honestly, it sounds like everything's just perfect and there's no challenges and it's just a
Yeah,
breeze
right.
and everything's easy. But I mean, that's what I want to talk about next is what are some of those challenges with attaining sponsors in a youth racing program?
Well, there's lots, I think. I mean, one, outside of the actual companies, one is maintaining a balance, keeping the fun for the kids, and then being able to make it affordable for the parents where the sponsor comes in. And that's been kind of hard, because, no matter what, the kids are out there to go have fun, and you don't want to lose that. So when you add a sponsor, well, here we have to do, I always tell Kaden, you really need to be able to know what's on your car and who is on your car and why it's on your car, and these are the people and these are the contacts, and it's a lot for a 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kid, but that's part of it, and so that's where you have to just try and really learn to maintain the balance of the two. Is one that I found, and another one that I think that I made a mistake in at the beginning is figuring out the 15% off discount versus the guy that's been working all night to get the kid's car ready for you to race the next day. They have the same sticker on your car, and they're getting the same recognition on social media, on every place that you post.
Yeah.
And I think that is another challenge that I didn't realize up until more recently. And I wish I would have. I wish I would have paid the extra $20 rather than, rather than just give the companies that really worked super hard to help out getting Kaden into these races.
Yeah, definitely.
It's hard, especially because for a young racer, he wants the billboard on his door, but I don't know, you really got to tighten it up, I believe, and make it, and really give the recognition that the sponsors deserve that have worked hard to get them there.
Yeah, definitely. How did you learn that? I mean, we've talked about it on this show, but I don't know if I've ever gotten to the root of how do people actually find out that that's a thing?
I think, to be honest with you, it comes later when you start getting when he's 4 years deep into racing, and he has these big companies that are there, the Polaris, the Magnum, the Walker Evans, Super, those companies have supported him from the big, I don't know, you have to tighten his race program up, I believe, as they get bigger. I don't know if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, it does. And I think the term that you just used there, tighten up your race program, that's something that I think that may have been how George Hamill even referred to it. We interviewed him back on episode 23. But,
yeah.
It's about the more you learn, the more changes you make, and I think ultimately the more professional you become and the more maybe even rigid you become in terms of how you negotiate contracts and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's a kid, so you really have to figure out that balance. Yeah. But at the same time, you got to give the companies that really give so much to these kids the recognition that they deserve. And I think I made a mistake possibly at the beginning, but we're cleaning it up and getting it right.
Yeah, that's really good too. I mean, one, honestly, that you recognize it and that you admit it's a mistake, but two, even better, that you made some changes to try to prevent that from being an issue.
Yeah. Another thing I was thinking of is staying level-headed. I noticed that seeing a lot of the parents out there, every parent thinks their kid is the best. That's the bottom line. They think their kid is amazing and they don't see faults and that kind of stuff. Well, you can't let that cloud your judgment. There's another 50 kids that are racing out there too. So don't let it cloud your judgment when you're out there expecting, I want 50% off, or I want this and I want that. Well, they may not think your kid is as great as you think they are.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let that cloud your judgment. And that's another thing that I feel like I've been pretty good at that, because Kaden, sometimes if he doesn't do well, he knows it. And he's harder on himself than we are. He's just like, what the heck what was I doing? Was I Sunday driving out there? And, so, but I think it's being realistic about all of it.
No, that's a really good point. Well, Kaden, what I want to talk to you about next is about the importance of sponsorship. I mean, why is this whole thing important to you in your racing?
Without my sponsors, our family probably can't afford it. And
probably.
They mean more to me than they know, and they help me be able to pay for our parts, which helps the car and us race better. And Prop Motorsports, they help us pay for our races, which helps us a lot. And all together, it helps mom and family a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Kaden, I'm glad you said that, because I think it's important for, kids to learn the value of money, right? And what you just said was very important in the fact that if you didn't have the support, you might not be able to do it. I mean, I think everybody wants to think that, their family or their parents can afford to do anything, and probably 97% of the circumstances, that's not the case.
Yeah.
And, racing's expensive.
It is. And
really
there's a double-edged sword there, too, because I remember at one point when we were building Caden's car last year, it got really expensive, and we were like, oh, my gosh. And me and my husband started talking about it a lot, and we didn't realize it, but him hearing it was causing him, I remember him saying, like, he's like, he didn't race his normal, like I could tell something was wrong. And he'd get off the track, and he's like, I just don't want to break it. I just don't want you to spend any more money.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, dude, don't worry about that. Like, we'll figure it out. But, it's a fine line, because they do need to know, that they just can't go out there and bash their vehicles, but yet they do need to know that, mom and dad, or just do your best and go out there and have fun.
Right. Wow, I hadn't thought about that. Kaden, I mean, is that something that you think about? Is it, are you nervous about breaking parts and things like that because of how it will impact, your family financially?
Well, sometimes it does. Sometimes it's like a bigger race, like the UP World Championships or Parker, Arizona, and then I just forget about it. I just want to I don't want to get up to the top, but I don't want to break the car, but I want to get up there to the top.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's got to be. I like what you said, Sarah, about it being a double-edged sword, because, it's good to have that lesson, and it's good to have that understanding, and actually it's even good to go out there and give it your all, and even if things break, sometimes people get popular for breaking stuff too.
Yeah.
And it's probably just that there's probably a mental game that's happening there for sure.
Yeah, there was. I mean, he had a good 2 races at the beginning of the year last year. He was just scared. He's like, I know you guys have spent so much money, and I feel bad. And I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. Like, it's no big deal. But but you also appreciate it, because you also don't want these kids to go out there and just bash everything they have and not appreciate it, and and then not finish. They're also hurting themselves. So crazy.
Oh, definitely. Well, Sarah, next I want to dig into some more contact stuff. I mean, we discussed a little bit about Magnum Off-Road and how you made a connection there, but I mean, do you have another example of how you made a contact with a sponsor, or if Kaden did it too? That's great. But I just want to give people an idea of how they can make contact.
Well, a couple of things. One, I think we have a big social media presence, or we're trying to do, I should say. We're trying to, and with that, I tell Kaden all the time, it's very important that you not just follow, you try and introduce yourself and meet them. Because you can follow 10,000 people, but if you don't know them or they don't, I think it's important to have a presence and to engage with the people on Instagram that you're talking to. For instance, we were following you. We got to hear the podcast. We saw you, and it just put 2 and 2 together for us. And I think that's really important. So for us, him being able to make contact, and him and me being able to follow up with him, and us going out there. We love off-roading, so we'll go to every race and every event that we can go to that my work and his school will allow, and just try and meet everybody. We have a blast. It's a fun thing to do. So if you can do it, do it. I don't know.
How did it work with Polaris? How did that happen? Because you said Kaden kind of did the work, but I mean, what are some of the details of how Kaden was able to get in front of someone from Polaris?
Well, I think through social media to begin with, because you are showing that you do have a record. You're showing you're winning, and then I think we go to a lot of the races. Even if we don't race, we're at the BITDs, we're at different events. The stand show and Camp Razor and so forth. And Kaden's not very shy. If he knows you, if he sees you on Instagram, or he'll walk up and he'll introduce himself, and 8 out of 10 times they'll know him just from social media, and it's kind of what he did here with Polaris, and they followed Kaden, and it was just kind of a working relationship, and Kaden he asked, and I followed up with resumes, and
Kaden, were you nervous about that? I mean, did that stress you out a little bit, reaching out to Polaris?
A little bit. It's just like a big sponsor, and whenever my mom told me, I was on the couch, and I was literally going around like a kangaroo. And
oh my gosh!
I was so happy.
Yeah, he's when we're out there, same thing. Same thing happened. We had mutual friends with. I don't know if you heard of Blake Wilkie. He's with Shreddy. Yeah. But same thing. We had mutual friends. We were introduced, and he did the same thing. He direct messaged Blake and said, "Hey, Blake, I'm a little, do you remember me?" And of course he did. And he said, "Hey, do you mind, sponsoring me?" And da da da. And then he said, "I'll have your mom send me your resume." And sure enough, we talked, and I think it's so important that you instill these manners that my husband and I have taught him. You walk up and you shake someone's hand, you look them in the eye, and you say your name and you say hi, and you need to be able to, when they're talking back to you, you look them in the eye and instill these manners. So, and then you be able to just talk to them. You don't have to tell a story. You just say hi, how are you, da da da, and carry a conversation. And like I said, with me following up, he's done the majority of the work in a lot of the areas. But just meeting people.
Yeah, definitely. For all the introverts that are listening right now and who immediately got stressed out by hearing that, I just actually listened to another podcast a couple of days ago, and they were talking about how introverts, they think that they can't, build businesses or, go to big parties, and because it doesn't feel good, it doesn't always give them as much energy. But there are some simple things that you can learn that can get that first conversation started, just like what you said. So basically what you said is just something it's a tool, it's a trick that people can use to make that conversation. It might not always feel good, and maybe it's not the most natural thing for you, but you can do that piece, start building that relationship, and then everything else becomes more comfortable from there.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, me and Kaden are the most outgoing in our family. My husband and my daughter, they're introverts. They would rather stay back and chill, and they love going everywhere. They love doing everything, but they're the ones that they don't care about the conversation. They don't care about hosting the conversation. Where me and Kate, all I care about is that if he walks up, he's polite and he knows how to talk to an adult, and he does. Like I said, he doesn't have to tell a story. He doesn't have to do any of that. But I think it carries a lot for a little 9-year-old to come up and be able to look you in the eye and shake your hand. It's important.
Definitely. I completely agree. Well, Kaden, I mean, we've talked a lot about the importance of sponsorship to you and how does that benefit you, but from their side, from the sponsorship side, I mean, what do you think it is that your sponsors really want? What is most important to them?
Well, I think what is most important to them is to spread the word of their product so everyone will know about them, and also, what's most important to them is to keep up your social media, which is one big thing because they know what you're doing. And another thing is thanking them in your speeches, which they really do love, and advertising them on the cars and our trailers so people see them on the road, at the races, you name it, they'll see it. And using their products and also supporting them. I love supporting my son.
Yeah, definitely. You know, one thing I'm curious about, I don't know if you've been involved with this at all, Kaden, but some of the racers that we've interviewed on the show, they say that they give a lot of feedback to their sponsors around their products. Like, hey, this product is really cool, but you might be able to change this or tweak that. And has anybody asked you that yet in your racing career?
No.
That's probably something I'm assuming over the next 5 or 10 years that might become a part too of what sponsors are asking you, like, hey, now that you're racing an 800, what do you think about this? How can we change this? I don't know. It's interesting.
So it's been really hard when you work with kids. Kaden has done a lot of R&D work because the 170 is so new, or was so new when he started. So he did do a lot of R&D work, but it's, again, you're working with 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. And he's finally, I have to say, this year and a little bit last year, he's really gotten better at. I mean, he can tell when something's wrong where we don't see it. He's like, something's going on, and so now I think he can. But it's hard to try and say, doesn't look like you're running good, and then and then he's just having a bad day, or he's Sunday driving, or it really isn't working, and we didn't know it because he never said anything. So.
Yeah, that's cool to think about. Kaden, from your perspective, probably how much you've learned over the past couple of years too, and probably how much you've done on accident, meaning you probably didn't even know really what R&D meant initially, right? And then you were probably accidentally helping your sponsors make their products better, which is really cool to think about.
Yeah, he did a lot of testing. A lot. I mean, when we first came, they were just caged, and we R&D'd everything. Everything.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's something that honestly, I've learned a little bit more about that too. I'll bring back MBRP. I've talked about them a lot in this episode, but I'm running their exhaust on my Polaris Razor, and I just do trail riding, but that's what they wanted some feedback on. So they're like, hey, where can we improve? And I was like, oh, well, shoot, after 500-600 miles, like, I noticed in this one spot, there might be an opportunity for a little bit different. And I'm a manufacturing engineering manager by trade, and I was like, there might be a way to do a different weld pattern or a different coating right there, because I noticed it changed color a little bit. Oh, great, that's good to know. We've been working on. We might change like the timing of when we apply the weld, or what, I don't remember what we talked about, but that's cool. And I would have never thought to do that 5-10 years ago if someone would have said, hey, I'd like you to run our product on your machine.
Yeah, it's crazy. When he started, it was 4 to 5 170s on the line, and that included him. And it was crazy. There wasn't anything. So it was cool to have our sponsors part of. I mean, they wanted to be part of the youth movement. And so let's figure out tires, let's figure out shocks, let's figure out this, and we changed springs on shocks and did this and did that, and finally found the right one for him, and for the right. They would have to adjust him because he'd grow and he'd get heavier, or tires.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole thing. Like as the kids grow older, we're changing seats and changing shock weights or shock pounds, and I mean we're constantly having to keep up.
Wow, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've got 2 kids right now, and they're like, I mean, every other day it's like, all right, when I got a new pair of pants or new shoes, you don't fit in anything. And
Yeah.
I never thought about that for
Try doing that
like
with a race
racing.
car.
Oh my goodness. Wow, that's pretty incredible. Yeah, so yeah, once you get your car dialed in, 6 months later, you're like, well, it's not handling quite the way it used to because I'm 3 inches taller and
Exactly,
10
and the
pounds
new
heavier.
suits, the new, you name it,
yeah.
everything. Every year, that's what I'm saying. Magnum's been building him a new car every year because he's growing like a weed.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Well, real quick, I want to touch on social media. You had talked about it a little bit about that's kind of a focus to grow there, but I mean, how do you do that? What's your strategy on social media?
Well, a lot of his contracts require so many posts per week and how many videos and all that kind of stuff. So I try and focus to doing. We try and do possibly 3 times a week. 2 being noting his sponsors, and then every night we sit together. Like whatever we do, we sit together and we'll take a picture, and then we'll go off of that, or we'll say today's Wednesday. We'll do Way Back Wednesday, or Wheels Up Wednesday, or that kind of thing. And then I like to do one post of just Kaden. Just I said, yesterday I think we did one of him golfing, and he's a kid still. He's got to be a kid, and I think it's important that if he has very many followers that don't know him, that they know that he's not just a 170 racer. He also is a kid. I think he's hilarious, and I think it's important for people to see who he really is. But the biggest thing with social media is content. To be honest with you, it was really hard at the beginning to go and pay more money for pictures than it was for the entry fee. And then I come to then you realize that all these people that are helping you out, getting your child to a race, that's what they want. That's what they need in order to be able to help you. And so it's worth the money. That's the biggest thing I could tell you with social media is buy content. You need content. Yeah. Get a photographer that you like and that you know that will give you good shots. Spend money on a video, a drone, a GoPro or whatever, and get content, because if you don't have content, there's nothing for you to post.
Yeah, that's it. That's a very good point. And I like too how you specifically think about the type of post to kind of mix things up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's a kid, and I mean, sorry to say, I mean, a 170 can only take a turn in one. I mean, the pictures get boring, so you got to mix it up. Like he has gotten so good at making videos. So we pick music. I'll take, I love taking pictures of just the candid stuff. So as a mom, I take pictures of him and his friends, him out there racing, all of us as a family together. And then he'll, on the way home from, Arizona and wherever we are, he'll go through and out of GoPro Splice or GoPro Quick, I think it is.
There's like 3 of them that I go through.
Yeah.
I try each one, and then I find the video I like, and then I show my mom, and then we'll post it. Yeah,
so he'll add music to it, and then by the time we're home, he's got a video together, and we post it, and it's fun. It makes it like I said, 170 pictures can get boring, so it's fun to mix it up.
Oh, that's really cool. Good job, Kaden. I mean, that's I feel like that's a pretty good accomplishment to be able to do that. I think most adults don't know how to edit a movie, so that's really cool.
He taught me.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can come teach me next.
All right.
Kaden, who out there, which racers do you think are really good at the whole sponsorship thing?
I think all of them, like RJ, Mitchie, Ronnie, Shelby, Craig, Sarah Price, but especially Randy and Sierra Romo, because they're really good on their social media, and they're always thanking their sponsors in their speeches, and they're always giving shout outs about their sponsors' products.
Yeah, definitely. I've said that I try to keep relationships with people who I've interviewed in the past, and the Romos, like they're always on my feed. Like I gotta keep up with the Romos. I gotta know what they're doing, and and there's something that they're doing there that makes people genuinely want them to succeed.
Yeah, they're amazing. We love them.
Mm-hmm.
They're a great family. They're genuine good people, and they can race. All of them, the whole family.
It's a great family.
Yeah, and speaking of a family that can race too, we talked about Shelby Anderson, and you just said RJ Anderson.
Yep.
Ronnie Anderson.
And Ronnie, you did say Ronnie. That's right.
I said the whole family.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am trying to work some back channels here and to get RJ on the show, and I'm so close. Like we've been emailing back and forth. But like, if you guys could put another plug in there, I think it's time. Like, it's time for RJ to come on.
This is that networking, right?
I'm totally like I was both Martellis, Joey D. I was like, come on guys, we gotta work this. Shelby, his cousin. I was like, Shelby, come on. And we're we're getting there. Josh Martelli gave me like that next little push to get where we're actually. I've gotten the conversation going on email with RJ, but. If you two can work in another little good word there, we'll get him on the show.
Okay, I'll be on your show.
Perfect.
I'll be watching.
Well, this was fantastic. A really good overview of sponsorship in a youth racing program. But actually, we've talked a lot about mindset already too. But I do want to touch on a few more things around mindset in the main event. And really, the reason why I like to talk about this in these shows is that I think there is a whole mental thing to it. I mean, we've talked about it in terms of racing. You got to have the right mindset. But I think also there's a lot of mental roadblocks you got to get past to feel comfortable reaching out to people and, creating these deals. So, but before we get into, a little bit more of those things, I still want to understand a little bit more about the mindset of from your standpoint, Sarah, of watching your boy go out there and like rip around a racetrack.
Well, I mean, I guess it really depends on the day, the event, all that. On a typical day, I would say I get nervous from the starting, like probably about a half an hour before he starts to the starting line, and then once he's off, I'm good to go. I'm fine. I know he's got it. I don't worry about any of that. But it's like Parker this last weekend. I was a mess. I don't know why. There's no reason why. I was just a mess. But I don't worry about him. I worry about the pressure. I worry about like when I see him when he asked this last weekend, "Hey, I want to go back." Like he's hanging out with his friends, watching the stock class go off, and he's like, "I need to go back." I'm like, "Oh, okay, no problem. Let's go back." And no, I'll go back. So I'm like, okay, right there, he's feeling something, and that's what gets me. Competition is good. I like it. It's important, but it also needs to be fun. So I get a little. That's what kind of gets me worried every once in a while. But on a typical basis, they're out there. Those kids, all of his friends are playing from dusk till dawn, and in between that, they stop for the 45 minutes of racing. About 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after, and they race their hardest. They're banging doors. They get out. They're high-fiving each other, jumping on each other, and they get back on their bikes and they're gone. So as long as it's like that, I'm good.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Kaden, I'm sure that there's a lot of fun that you have at school as well, but maybe not quite as much as with racing. But how do you balance that? I mean, there's a lot going on there, right? You've got to learn your sponsors. You got to do the social media thing. You've got to go out to the races and prep for all that. Probably working on cars. I mean, how do you balance that with your school?
Well, I have to get good grades for my parents and some of my sponsors, literally, and I always I have to complete all of my work so I can get the good grades, and I have to listen to my teacher so I can get those good grades. And I try my hardest always to get good grades so I can leave class early so I can go to the Best in the Desert or Works or some of those races far away.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, Kaden, I want to ask you one more thing. You said some of your sponsors, want you to get good grades. Is that in a contract, or is that just, you feel like that's the right thing to do?
I think that's the right thing to do.
Perfect. That's really cool, and I'm glad you think that too, because school is important, and there's a lot of stuff you can build on from school that you can take away to make yourself a better human being in the future. So I'm glad that you have that mentality that you can work hard there too, and still race.
Thank you.
Very good. So Sarah, we talked about this a little bit, honestly, around when things don't really go well with Kaden in how maybe he's feeling, but I mean, what do you do? Like, how do you handle that? How do you help him through those challenges?
Well, we used to do a lot of rituals. You have your orange soda. You sit back. You take 30 minutes before the race. We pray. We do this. We do that. Now he's gotten to be pretty seasoned where he just wants to just chill and focus and leave him alone. So it's kind of just day by day. How big of a race? Is it the World Championships? Is it a normal work series race, or is it for points? So it's kind of depending on the race and what it's all about. But we try and make it to where just go out there and have fun. Don't let the pressure get to you, because I know for me, the pressure would literally put me in the ground. I couldn't race. So I don't want that to fall on him. So I just try and just, make it as fun as possible.
I kind of like how you said, we started doing this, rituals and whatnot, and then we changed to something else. And because that's going to happen, right? Like Kaden, you're getting physically bigger every day. You're getting taller. You're getting stronger, but also mentally, you're getting stronger and more independent each day. So I think that it's important, and it's good that, Sarah, you've been able to adapt how you help him prep to what ultimately suits him better.
Yeah. Well, then it got to the point where you didn't have an orange soda, and it was like, I'm not going to win. So I was like, okay, we got to cut this out. This is not going to work anymore. So
that's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, so we just said, okay, look, dude, you didn't win this race, but you won the other one, and you had an orange soda, but at the same time, clearly it's not working. So let's figure this out.
That is awesome. I wish I could say that I don't have some of my own little things like that. But
yeah, it got bad. It was bad.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, it was just a little bit of everything. Finally, we just, without him realizing it, though, he didn't really get it. We started cutting things out, and now it's just more of, okay, Kaden, it's time. It's an hour before your race. Let's come in and chill out. I'll make you some dinner or some lunch or whatever, and just kind of get him to relax. So, and that's about it.
Well, Kaden, earlier I asked you who's really good at sponsorship, and you gave me a list of names, most of them with the last name Anderson. But this next one, and maybe it's the same people, I don't know, but who inspires you the most and why?
Well, R.J. Anderson, because I always looked up to him because he's a great driver, and I want to do backflips like him whenever I go out. And I want to try attempting that.
Yeah, there you go.
Mitch Guthrie, and because his consistency with his races, and he works on his own car, and I like to work on mine too. And one more is my mom and dad, because they give me the chance to do this type of sport, which is awesome, and I know they love me, and they're teaching me how to be a good person, which I really do appreciate, and teaching me the good manners. And they took me to the desert whenever I was 3 weeks old, and we went on a trail ride in Wells. 3 weeks old. I jumped in that passenger seat, and we went on the ride. And my dad was still riding dirt bikes by the time, and it was us three by the time, and we went on a big trail ride.
So if CPS is out there, it's been 9 years now.
Yeah, and all the correct restraints
right.
and what were installed, and it was that's cool though. And Kaden, I'm glad that you said that because it does take a lot of work, and I think that I know I'm a parent, and if my kid said that to me right now, I'd feel pretty happy.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, well, that was awesome. Lots of good information, good story, good mindset, good details around sponsorship. But you know what? All good things must come to an end, and that's what we're going to do next. We're going to wrap things up at the finish line. And what I like to do before we kind of close things out is get, like an important piece of advice from the guest. So, I mean, what would be one thing that you think our listeners should take away from this conversation?
For the youth racing, I would say the balance of them being kids and letting them have fun versus sponsorship. It's really important that you remember that they're just kids. And if you can teach them, how to just, understand what they're doing and understand what, if you're going to pull a sponsor, this is what they're doing. This is a shock. This is Walker Evans. This is how they supported us. This is why. And this is, they've helped us out so much. Just to really understand what's going on so they can be a part of it, but still keeping the fun in it, which is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then social media presence, of course, that is huge. You need to be able to do that. You need to be able. One thing I didn't mention is I found out that tagging is a huge deal. I had no idea,
yeah.
But realizing as far as the lineup of tagging, that can really, sponsors care about that stuff. They want to know, where am I in this lineup of tagging?
Right,
and
right.
I had no clue until one of I asked my sponsors. At the beginning of it, I said, thank you for supporting Kaden. We so appreciate it. Is there anything that you want us to do different this year? What do you need from us? And they said, oh, you're doing great. Or, oh, can you start providing us videos? Can you start doing this and do that? And I said, absolutely. We so appreciate you. But part of it was, where am I in the lineup of Kaden? Like, where do I fall? And that's important, to make sure that you don't put a 15%er in front of someone that works their butt off trying to get your kid to a race.
Right,
so,
right.
I don't know. I made the mistake. I'm learning, and I had no idea.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. I like for this podcast, for example. I mean, the way everything's structured, it's all even keel, so it makes it pretty simple here. But then I like to rotate. So if people are listening through the commercials, I like to change the who goes first, who goes second, who goes third, blah blah blah. And then same with the tagging, I like to switch them around. But that's important. And I've always wondered, honestly, I've struggled, and maybe this is just something that someone in the audience knows the answer to. But like, let's say if you have a list of 4 or 5 people that you tag in a post, who is most remembered? Is it the first or the last? Like, sometimes I thought about that. Sometimes I'll go to the bottom of a page to write a comment or something, and I see the last name on the list. I was like, was that more important?
Yeah. It's hard. I had no idea, and I literally had a sponsor tell me, like, why am I here? I'm like, oh my gosh,
Right.
because I just wrote it,
Yeah. But
so I had to, come up with something and copy it and put it on my phone so I could help copy and paste. So when me and Kaden sat down together, it was, I didn't forget, or I knew where to put it.
Right. That's a very good point.
So.
That's a very good point. Well, if anybody has answers to that, or if they've struggling with it, or if they figured it out, shoot us an email, podcast@impactfuel.org, and maybe we'll share the information in the future too. So, Kaden, though, let's say someone wants to reach out to you. How do they do that?
I have Instagram and Facebook, and the username is Kaden Danbury 27, and Hook It, and YouTube is Kaden Danbury, and we're on the process of building our new website, which is called DanburyRacing.com.
Ooh, very cool. Very cool. Do you know when the website might be released? You have kind of a target month or?
Hopefully this month.
Oh,
yeah.
And for people listening, we're recording this on January 11th of 2018, and it's potential then that the website might be out by the time this show is released.
That is the goal, making
right
our
now.
lives a little bit easier. We'll put our race reports up there and put pictures up there, and Kaden will be dialed in.
Perfect. If you're driving and listening to this show right now, pull over. Go to DanburyRacing.com. If it's not there, then just keep trying every single day, until you see it. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate both of you for taking the time to chat with us and kind of kicking off this whole youth racing focus that I want to try to bring into the show. At this point, though, I'm going to kind of wrap things up and leave you with this. Have fun and ride safe.
Thank you very much for inviting me and my mother to this show.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast. I hope you got value out of the show and hope that you want to keep continuing to get value in future episodes. Best way to do that is to subscribe. That way you don't miss upcoming guests. Up next, we have the next edition of our youth racing program, and that is Casey and Carla Sims. And then after that, we have Christine GZ coming on of Dynamic Racing. If you would be so kind, head over to iTunes, leave a rating and review. That's phenomenal. It's a great way to give us feedback and also a good way to help the show grow, specifically on iTunes. Special thanks for this show goes out to our sponsors, Armor Kote, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, and TopThePodium.com. Additionally, just another quick shout out to some of our other project sponsors, and that is MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and One Stop Performance. Make sure that you're following us on social media. That way you can keep up on all the cool, fun stuff that we're doing. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Handle is Sponsored Rider Club Podcast. On Twitter, it is SRC Podcast. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.